What's your advice to someone who is lost?
The opposite of addiction is connection, and I could never do this thing on my own.
I've been working since I was a kid. I just gotta keep my head.
That you're responsible for and that your name's attached to, do you feel like that gave you that responsibility to be better than you were?
That's when it all began. I don't need a rollie on my.
When you believe in yourself a little bit, you'd be surprised what could happen. All right, today I have a very special guest on. He is the current GM of Barstool Sansom Street, and a good friend of mine. And you have a story that I think that needs to be heard. So I'm curious to learn more about you, learn more about your story and your cancer journey.
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Fabio. Is that how you say it?
That's it. Yeah, Fabio.
All right, let's go. All right, so first off, I want to say welcome into the Loft. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
It's a Monday. Sixers are on today, so that'll be exciting. You're going to AC today, which is just like for your friend's birthday.
Yep.
But I wanted to have you on and really just hit on like your story. Like I said, we talked briefly about it. It was like a Wednesday night or something like that where I was officially introduced to you. So you're currently the GM at Barstool.
Correct.
But you are leaving, you said?
I am going to be leaving, yeah. I had a couple opportunities. I got recruited by another hospitality group. But I believe I'm going to be kind of pursuing something outside the industry for the first time.
That's exciting.
It is.
You're not going to share it yet, right? You're holding it in, right?
I'm going to hold it for a little bit.
Okay.
Kind of get the ball rolling a little bit, and
for
then
sure.
I'm an open book. So
right.
No
secrets. So I mean, your Barstool is a great restaurant, great bar, great people. As I've been getting to meet everybody. So how did you get into Barstool, and how long have you been at Barstool for?
So it's kind of a funny story. I was convinced I was done with the industry.
Right.
I thought that after being sick and everything like that, I thought that I had just had my experience.
Right.
I knew as much as I was going to need to know about it. And I was in Mexico with my buddy Ed and his wife Bree. I wanted to do something big to celebrate, finishing treatment. So he had a condo that he was renting in Rosarito, Mexico, literally overhanging the ocean. So
that's pretty nice.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. So I wanted to do something big, like I said, and he had this place for the month. So we went down there, and I brought my son with me, and we just kind of kicked it. So my third day there, I'm just planning to relax and soak in the sights, and I get a phone call from a buddy of mine that we've been friends since junior high. And he says, "Hey, I got you an interview. It's in 10 minutes. Don't fuck it up." So I said, "For what?" And he goes, "GM of Barstool in Philly." And I said, man, I think I'm done with the industry. I appreciate it.
Right.
And he says, "Don't be an idiot. Take the phone call." So I said, "All right." So I work for a company called Stanton & Barry. And it has been the most positive experience I've had in the restaurant industry. So one of the founder of the company, Rick, and I had a phone call. And the second I hung up the phone, I was like, God damn it. He's going to get me to do it. I know he's going to get me to do it. So I was pretty dead set against it at first. And, we had a couple funny Skype interviews where the internet in Mexico, as you might imagine, isn't the best.
Probably, yeah. Awful.
Right. So I wind up over-talking one of the directors during half the interviews. And so I'm sitting here thinking that I fumbled the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it was just it was serendipitous. I mean, I think it was the right place at the right time. A lot of the core values that they expressed to me that were important to them are very important to me as well. So I spent the rest of the month in Mexico, did a couple of weeks in Southern California, flew back, got right to work.
That's awesome. So before Barstool, what was your experience like in the hospitality industry?
Oh, I've been doing this a long time. My first experience in the restaurant industry was a place in Jersey called Top Dog.
Okay. And
I was there from 01 to 05. I started as a server. I lied to get my job.
I mean, yeah. Why not, right?
You have to.
Got to embellish a little bit.
Exactly.
Yep.
Prior to that, I was selling suits. I was working for Brooks Brothers, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. It just wasn't for me.
Right.
And there was a girl that I went to high school with that was working there, and she was telling me how much money she was making. And I was like, man, Like, there's got to be something better than selling these suits. So I lied, and I told him that I had serving experience, and I didn't. You know, in the first couple shifts, I was like, I'm definitely getting fired. There's just no way, because I didn't know how to do anything.
Right.
But I figured it out pretty quickly. I think I just kind of took like a fish to water. You know, it was really just kind of, once I understood the rhythm of it and what they were looking for, it made it real easy for me to kind of be able to grow my skill set. So
yeah, you just kind of took the leap. Yeah.
Right. So then, you know, after that, I lied to get my first bartending job. I opened Continental Midtown. And shortly after that, I went back to Top Dog as a bartender. And so I bartended there for like 5 years. And at the time, it was the busiest place around. I mean, similar to how busy Barstool is today, it was that kind of thing. You know, I'd have regulars that would drive down from New Brunswick on a Tuesday night.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. It's crazy. You know, we would do 2,000 covers on a busy Tuesday night. So
yeah, it's awesome.
From there, you know, I bounced around a little bit. I was part of the old city scene for a long time, where I got to, you know, meet a lot of the guys that I still know today. Right. I worked down in AC for a little bit, mainly in bartending and management roles.
A lot of experience then.
Oh yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, take notes. Lie on your resume. Lie to get yourself wherever you want.
I mean, hey, you know, it's only a lie if you get caught.
Right. So so I know you work in hospitality, but was there a deeper reason why you love this so much? Like, what was like? Do you feel like drew you to that? What drew you into that like type of work?
It was, I think, the pace is really what
like fast pace.
Yeah, you know, there's really no other industry like it, where I mean, you just get your ass kicked for
right,
you know, a half day, 12 hours a day.
Right.
But you get to meet so many different people. You know, there's different kinds of currency. Sure, there's, you know, the fiat currency that you get paid with, but there's also social currency, and there's, you know, the circles that you have access to that you typically wouldn't.
For sure.
You know, so I liked knowing that I had a guy for everything. You know, if I need a mechanic, I got one.
Yep.
Mortgage guy, got one. So things like that really made it pretty cool. You know, and then you get to meet all sorts of athletes and actors and.
Yeah, I was at Kurt's Poor Decisions party, and Matt McClung was there. Yep. And I was like, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, Matt's a great kid.
Yeah, he's good.
Great dude.
Yeah, and I know a lot of the sections would pull up to Barstool and stuff like that. So, okay, so when did you start in the industry?
2001.
Okay, so you're a vet.
I sure am.
You've been in there, hell yeah. All right.
Yeah, team old guy.
Right. So, I know we hit it on obviously the nightlife and the you know the hospitality industry, but it sounds like it took a bit of a halt when you had a bit of you had some cancer issues.
Right.
So if you don't mind opening up about that, how did that start? What happened?
So I was working, I guess I probably shouldn't say where I was working, but I was bartending, and my shoelace got caught on something. I tripped, and I fell. So immediately, you know, when you have a workers' comp thing like that, you go right to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, got an x-ray. They told me they thought it was tendonitis to start. So, but the pain was inexplicable. I mean, I don't know if you ever had bad tooth pain.
I've had like root canals and stuff like that. But,
okay, so like when it gets infected and it hurts like that, the kind of pain that you just can't block out. It was similar experience to that, but much, much worse. I was eating, I don't know, 4 Advil and 4 Tylenol every 45 minutes, just pacing the house, dripping sweat. So that happened on a Sunday night. Wednesday, I go to one of those doc in the box, like an urgent care, one of those places. And these 2 women that must have been in their 90s were trying to tell me that it was dislocated. I was like, it's definitely not dislocated. Like, I don't know what's going on, but something's up. So the pain never gets any better. I reached back out to the workers' comp company, the insurance company, and they told me to go back to the emergency room. So I went on a Friday morning, knowing what it's like, figured it was going to take a few hours. So I get there early on a Friday morning, and they just don't let me go. They admitted me for the week. And then that's how we found out that I had osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer. And there's only 900 cases a year in the U.S.
Wow, very rare.
Very rare. So, and most of those cases are either pediatric or geriatric. So I was 38 when I was diagnosed, which is almost unheard of.
Wow. So, and as of March, you were 3 years cancer free. That's amazing.
Yep.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's it's a long road.
Right.
Without getting too far into it, it's I went through heavy doses of chemo, and it didn't work. Cancer spread. So they told me initially that it was just going to be shoulder replacement. It's going to suck, but you'll get through it. Yeah, no problem. Let's dive in. So after 2 or 3 big rounds, they found that the tumor was growing, and my surgery was scheduled for March 2nd, 2020. 4 days before it, that Wednesday before, I had my final consultation with my oncologist and my orthopedic oncologist, and it started off friendly. Everything seemed to be pretty upbeat, and that's when they told me that the tumor had grown, and that the issue was that the tumor had encased the artery that really just affects the blood supply to the arm. So they could cut the tumor out, but they told me that I had less than a 5% chance of waking up with my arm. So that was I was earth shattering. Honestly, I had no idea where I was, just totally thunderstruck. The girl that I was dating at the time was in the room with me, and it just sucked the oxygen out of the room. Right. And I was hysterical. I had 4 days trying to come to grips with the fact that I was only going to have one arm. So, I go into surgery fully expecting that I was going to wake up and only have one arm. And I come out of surgery and I was on ketamine. So I am fully tripping balls by the time I wake up.
Right.
So my surgeons, Dr. Scott Brown and Dr. Adam Stroll, came in the room afterwards and talked to me a little bit. And Adam told me that he'd never seen anything like it. The tumor had just peeled away from the artery, which was wild. So actually, I kind of have a funny story I'll share with you. So
yeah,
as I was in surgery and everything like that, my father was texting everyone, all my friends, kind of letting them know what was going on, giving them the updates and everything like that. So one of my best friends, his name's Andy, and my dad is texting everyone. He sends out a text. He says, "I just spoke with the RN working with the surgeon. We still have a ways to go, but the tumor's out. There have been several clear margins, but this is the big one. If they get a clear margin on this, they'll be able to rebuild his arm. Keep praying." And the response was just 3 question marks. And I love Andy. But we all kind of thought that maybe Andy just didn't understand what my dad was saying. So my father says, it means that the soft tissue cancer has been removed and the tissue around it is clear. The bone tumor is also out. If the margins are clear for that, then the surgeon will be able to rebuild his shoulder and humerus with titanium. And the response is, "I think you have the wrong guy or number." And my dad, being the guy that he is, he sends a text back. He says, "Well, pray anyway." So at this point, he starts going through my mother's phone, my phone, my girlfriend at the time's phone to make sure that he had the right number. Confirmed it was the same number with everybody else. So the conversation kind of progresses, and the guy on the other end says, "I will. I'm sorry. May I ask who this is?" And my dad says, "Yes, my name is Frank. My son Ian has bone cancer, and they're operating right now." And he says, "Okay, my name is Edwin. I'll pray for your son Ian. He will be blessed." So my dad said, "Thank you, Edwin. Peace be with you, my friend. You also don't lose faith, my friend." And my dad responded and said, "Edwin, this is for you. They saved Ian's arm. Everything went his way today, so says the surgeon." Edwin says, "Thank God, God bless my friend." Well, the next day, my dad decides he's going to text Edwin just to say thank you. My buddy Andy responded.
Wow.
So I don't know how those lines got tangled or crossed. I'm sure I could find a way to explain it away, but I'm just going to take that as a gift from the universe, kind of giving you what you need when you need it without actually knowing.
Yeah, I think sometimes the universe has a weird way of working itself out, and when you had that surgery completely going in, not knowing if you're going to have your arm, what was going through your head?
I was in a bad mental spot for sure. Leading up to that, to manage the pain, the palliative care team, gave me all sorts of really heavy duty painkillers, and they really affect your emotional state. And I think it took me a long time to turn the corner, where a lot of things in life, it's really easy to think about how they affect me. Like, what about me?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't take any time to think about what was still going to be left. I was thinking about what I was going to lose. But I did all sorts of things, that I didn't think I'd be able to do. I was taking pictures of my middle finger with my left hand.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like to, I was an amateur musician. So I went out, I knew I was never going to be able to play guitar again, piano again, anything like that. So I spent a lot of time alone, just kind of relishing in those things and enjoying them for, what could have been the last time.
And then you woke up with that arm.
I did.
And how did you feel?
Well, it's bittersweet. So they took the shoulder, so I can really only move it below the elbow. They took out the deltoid, the long head of the bicep, and the joint itself. So obviously, I was ecstatic. It was still a long road. I had drained stick anatomy, and the incision was 65 centimeters. I had something like 65 staples.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was pretty gnarly.
Sounds intense.
But, I think in combination with realizing that I had it and that conversation that my father had through that text message, it was kind of just like a spiritual kick in the ass that I needed. I still don't know exactly what I believe, but it was definitely something that made me believe that there is some sort of higher power out there. Now, what that is, I couldn't tell you.
Right.
But it kind of helped give perspective of your place in this big world.
Do you think that you were any closer to finding your place in this world?
That's a good question. I think what I've learned from this is that I'm a big believer in duality. And it took me a long time to get to this point. But so many people, when they're faced with adversity, find it easy to say, what about me? Poor me. And I felt that way, for sure. There's no doubt about it. But after getting some time and perspective, I started feeling a little bit differently. It took years. But I now believe that the worst thing and the best thing that ever happened to you are both of those things at the same time. So one of the real blessings that I got out of this situation was that, I was 38, right? I'd been living my life one way the entire time. It's the only way I knew how to do it. And everything got put on hold. And that gave me time to reevaluate the things that were important to me, people that were important to me, what I wanted to do, all those kind of things. And, even though it was a rough road, I feel incredibly blessed now to be able to inherently look at things from a different perspective than I ever would have had I never been sick.
What does Ian find important to him now going through this?
It's a big one. I think it's about human connection. I think it took me out of, as I said, the me, into how we live in harmony with other people, because that's a real thing. And no one can do it themselves, You need help from people all the time.
Absolutely.
So I think, I've always strived to give respect even before it's given back to me. Not to say that you always get it back, but
right.
I think it's important to treat people with respect, and all I want at the end of the day is to be able to look at myself in the mirror and say, I was a good dude today, or at least I did everything I could. And, no one's ever going to succeed at that all the time. But understanding how my actions affect other people is something that I put a lot more focus on now.
That's huge. And it's funny, I was at a wedding with my friend Maddie yesterday, and she was asking me, she's like, why are you like from the bartenders to the people giving out those little like entrees,
The hors d'oeuvres,
the hors d'oeuvres, yeah. I said, why do you call them all by their first name? And because I'll look at their name tag, I'm like, oh, thank you, Cindy, or thank you, whatever. And to me, I always believe that just like kind of exactly what you just said is like giving that respect without necessarily expecting it in return. And she's like, why are you doing that? I'm like, because my pop, before he passed back in November, taught me, he always, every time we had a waitress, server, he always asked them for their name and just referred to them. He just kept repeating their name. He referred to them by their name and built such a good relationship with them in that short 45 minutes that we were there. And it just ultimately taught me to just like respect you, like kind of like you said, like sort of like you respect the janitor the same way you respect the CEO, because at the end of the day, you never know who you're talking to, and you never know what, what their situation is or who they are as a person.
Said you never know what someone's going through. It could
Right.
be the worst day of their life, and all they need
Right.
is a smile.
Right.
And it doesn't cost anything to give it.
Right. Yeah.
So why not make that effort?
Yeah. And for the short time I was at the wedding, I also learned, so one of Maddie's work friends, so it was like her boss's wedding, and one of her work friends, she was with her husband dressed up in a military suit. And I'm like, why is he wearing a military suit to a wedding? Like in my head, I'm like, what? But I kept my mouth shut and I kind of kept quiet and was trying to be more understanding. So just by sitting, observing, just talking, being good for like connecting and being social, whatever. The mom of the wife of the bride came over and said, thank you for wearing that. Her husband has very, very bad Alzheimer's and was in the Navy. And she asked for him to specifically wear that.
That's awesome.
And I sat and I was like, wow. I was like, and it meant so much to the wife and the mom, and I can tell. I kind of just sat and watched their interaction. I can just tell how much it meant to her, because of everything she's going through. And I just like really sat with myself and I'm like, if we can just be more patient and like understanding of people's why, then I think life will be a lot different for us and better in a way, and transitioning into your why, do you think that this journey of your cancer and, the coming out of it, with your arm gratefully and thank God. And do you think that it gave you a little bit of like, you've learned from that and you're able to like help other people with that? Like, do you think your story, have you been able to help others with your story? Do you think there's a purpose of why this happened to you?
I do. For a long time, this is the first time I've really talked about it in depth in a long time, because for the first couple of years, it's all I talked about,
right?
And it was hard to get away from it because that was my identity for so long. Like I was the sick guy,
for sure.
And I hated being the sick guy,
right?
But it's all anyone wanted to talk about, and it came up in so many different conversations all the time. Somehow it was always worked in, and I'm guilty of that. But how has it affected my why? I think that I'm now, like I said, much more concerned with how my actions affect others. And I don't always do a good job, but I will always try to make it right. If I'm wrong, I will absolutely say I'm sorry. When, I was in my 20s, I was the last guy to do that.
Right, yeah.
I was a little bit of a hothead, and I think it's just kind of helped me develop more empathy. But I guess it all kind of ties back into the industry as well, because I love being around people. It's just where I'm comfortable. For years, it was hard for me just to sit around my apartment and not do anything, because I'm used to just the background noise and seeing people and all that kind of stuff.
Like the calmness.
Yeah, it really is. It's in the chaos, there's definitely stillness. And, I'm a single dad, so my son has always been my biggest why, and he always will be. But being able to kind of lead by example and understand that one thing that you say can make a difference in someone's life has really driven a desire for me to give back to all the people that gave so much to me when I was in need. And, I've always been one of those people that I'm not great with compliments. Like, I don't like taking them.
Right.
And they just make me uncomfortable. and all that kind of stuff. But I understand how important it is to other people to get them.
Right. Yeah. And it sounds weird to say, but it also is important to take them as well, because that person's giving you a compliment, you're accepting that, and whether you just say thank you, however you take it, but it just shows that, hey, like, I appreciate you going out of your way to say something nice,
Sure. Yeah, 100%.
So talking about your son, how old is your son?
It's 15.
Your son is 15.
Yeah.
So with your son, when you were going through this journey, how important was it to you to stay strong for him?
Oh, it was the biggest thing in the world. I'll never forget having to tell him, that I had cancer, and he broke down. It was a tough few days because I tried to tell as many people as I could just to kind of get it out of the way.
Right.
It was heartbreaking, but I've said it 1,000 times. I think anybody can get through it if you're stubborn enough.
Yeah.
Fortunately for me, that's my default setting. So,
right.
it was just a matter of like, all right, left foot, right foot, let's do it. But I made an effort, and I don't know if I did a good job or not, but I made an effort to kind of handle it as gracefully as I could. And, I had moments of weakness. There's no doubt about it.
Right. That's where the people come into play.
Exactly.
To help you.
And I had some people in my life that were incredibly giving without asking for anything in return. Mm-hmm. And it's something I'll be grateful for until the day I die.
Mm-hmm. So, are your parents in your life?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
When you broke the news to them, what was that?
It was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough for sure. But I think that because I was so dead set on beating it, on just getting through it, at least at the beginning, I think it was easier for people to be around that and be part of it.
Right.
Kind of like as we went on and you get worn down and, you're on all these, I was on morphine every day, oxys every day.
Right.
But it was like taking the Tylenol. There weren't any sort of extracurricular feelings I was getting out of it.
Right,
but,
right.
that stuff just, it takes a toll. So
when this journey sort of, when the surgery was finished and you were, for lack of better terms, in the clear, when your world stood still and you had that moment to yourself, like, you just beat it, what was going through your mind? Did you have a moment like that?
No, I'm still scared as anything of it coming back.
Right.
Like I still have my scans that I do. And, I get scanxiety, like right leading up to it, where every little thing, like, oh man, is it back? Why does this hurt?
Yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera. So,
Right.
I have more peace day by day. 5 years is really the big benchmark, but we're trending in the right direction.
It's exciting. And so hitting on, I know you talked about you don't want to be like the sick guy or this, but something I've begun to taught myself is that, like, your story is so important, and to everything you're going through, to own every single part of it. One, so no one can use it against you, and two, it just is, it did happen. And I've learned that by being vocal about your story and opening up, like you are today, it's like you're helping another person, and I think, by being open, by things maybe issues you've had or insecurities you have, like you realize how much you are helping another person. And I just want to say thanks for sharing that, your story. And because to me, cancer took one of the most important people in my life, my grandma, when I was 16 years old. And to me, that was like the life-changing moment, because I haven't really, never really had a loss in my life like that. So to have it go from, oh, grandma has cancer, to 3 months later, we were in the hospital saying that it's their last night. And like that, like that shocking reality of like your life just turning at such a young age, it changes people and it changes your life. And for you to fight and to push through that, and the surgery and to go through with the surgery, it just, it makes your story that much more impactful, and to own that. So your recovery, I mean, how long was that recovery process? And I know you're still like recovering every single day is part of your journey, but briefly after that recovery process, talk me through that and how was that?
So I had a couple other big doses of chemo afterwards, just to make sure that they were able to get, if they missed anything during the surgery, they'd be able to kill any cells that way. And then I did a year of immunotherapy, where you actually have to be a genetic match for that. Not everyone's a candidate. I was very fortunate that I was. It's much easier to go through than chemo, for sure.
Right.
But it's no walk in the park.
Right.
You know, it's just your insides are going crazy. It creates all sorts of other issues you may not have had before. And but that carried through. So I finished treatment summer of 2021, August of 21.
Okay.
And then I had the phone call with Rick February of 22.
Hell yeah.
Started working for Sansom Street.
That's awesome.
March of 22. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really curious as well, as someone who lived through this cancer and this whole entire journey that you're going through. I'm really curious on your philosophy on life and how it changed since before you had cancer.
It's really perspective is the biggest thing, honestly. Like don't sweat the small stuff, because in the end, it's all small stuff.
Right.
Right. And there's another quote, I'll butcher it, but essentially it's perspective is the enemy of prejudice. So just having perspective now is by far the biggest thing for me. You know, I was someone working in the restaurant industry, which is typically a selfish industry. Right. And I did that for, 20 years. Right. And I was on a track that I think absolutely could have been improved. And I don't know if I was willing to do the hard work to change that prior.
Sometimes you got to be thrown into the fire, whether it's
exactly
God knows how.
Right.
Right. Sometimes you just have to go through it. To get over it, you have to go through it.
That's it.
And drop this every single episode in some capacity, but my grandma, my mom's mom, still here, thank God, gave me this quote that I will hold dearly to me forever, and it is all about perspective. And she says, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yes. And when you take the small things and you see them as potentially ways to learn or potential ways to grow, big or small, that's when you really start to see growth in yourself. And
absolutely.
And coming out of the surgery and coming out of the recovery process, how have you seen growth in yourself?
Man, I didn't expect these questions to be so good. I think I did a lot of spiritual growth, maybe more than anything. Letting go of a lot of the things that may have driven negative behavior patterns. And that's kind of what perspective gives for you. So all the things that you felt, why me, poor me, right, those kind of things. Right. It's hard to hold on to those for me now. If it's not something that directly affects someone that I love or doesn't hurt me, I typically don't give them too much thought. You can have a bad day, you can have a bad moment, but is that really enough to ruin the way you see the rest of the world? Right.
For a lot of people, it is.
Yeah. And it bums me out when people are like that. There have been people in my life that, you just can't change their perspective. They're so set in what they believe that, it's hard for them to see things from another angle. And I think the one thing that I've learned is that every time I'm convinced I know something, I'm probably as far off from the true answer.
You don't. Are you one of those people who likes to be the one, not so everyone, some people, a lot of successful people say this, but I'm asking you if this is how you feel. Are you one of those people who doesn't want to be the smartest in the room?
I never think I am the smartest in the room. I'm only smart enough to know that I'm not that smart. There's a lot of really brilliant people out there. I just think it would be pretentious of me to say that I was ever smart.
Do you think, what do you think, okay, so what good qualities and what strengths do you think you do have?
I think I typically choose my words very carefully. And they change based on whom I'm speaking to and when we're having the conversation and what we're talking about. I rarely say things by accident. It's because I try to see the bigger picture of the way the conversation could go or what the point of the conversation is. Right. But I think about people and everything that I do. I think that a lot of people see leadership as a position to be attained. And I couldn't feel more differently about that. I think that leadership is a service to be given. So those are kind of the things that, like, even when I'm teaching my son, or when I'm handling a guest at work or something like that, or if I'm going to ask someone to do something, I'm not afraid. If it's, you know, it's a shitty thing to do, I'm not afraid to be the first person to go do it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I guess it would be a degree of, and I don't feel comfortable saying this about myself, but selflessness, I think, is important to try to practice.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that I'm selfless. I'm just saying that
You're allowed to say that, though, if that's what you truly feel, though. You know?
I try to give more than I get.
Right.
And that's really the big thing.
I think that comes with being a leader, though. And I think that I can actually sympathize with you completely on that. And that is the nature of being a leader, is that you're naturally giving more than you're supposed to be given. And I think that becomes a respect thing, because at the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that good always comes back to you if that's what you want to give out.
I agree.
You know? So for me, I lead a nonprofit with my partners, Megan, the founder, and my friend Madison.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah, so it's called The Grace Project. We go to Kensington every Thursday. We give out food, clothes, hygiene products, and I lead the outreach in Kensington every Thursday. And one of the things that I've learned is that leadership is essentially your ego has to be out the door.
Yes.
So for me, my job out there is to lead everyone to have a great experience. And also, if someone has a strength, for them to own that and not be like, oh, no, I need to do that because I'm the leader. It's more so, for example, like Lisa is a woman who's been doing our clothes for the past few months. And I let her, I said, that is your station.
Yeah.
Like, you handle that. You have people working under you now to give out the clothes, whatever you need to do. I just will just oversee it. But it's like, it's more so just like letting her do that, you know, and letting her have that power. And it's, you know, it's, and also the most important thing out there is to make sure the people that receive the proper care, you know? So it's like,
absolutely right.
Your ego has to essentially be out the door. And like you said, your selflessness has to be present, and for it to be a good leader. It's not necessarily you telling others what to do. It's more so you acting by example, like for like cleaning the trash off the street or something like that, like doing the dirty work. And you know, it's just that's the true meaning to me of being a leader. I know you say that for yourself as well.
Yeah, you know, I'll never ask someone to do something that I'm unwilling to do.
Right, for sure. Yeah, and I think people can see that, and they ultimately respect that.
Yeah.
So you know, moving on to, you know, what Ian wants in his life. You know, after this amazing journey you've been on, I can only imagine that you'd see life a lot differently now. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to what you want in your life, what do you ultimately want?
I just want to be happy like anybody else does. But what does happiness look like? For me, I get much more joy out of making sure the people around me are safe, secure, loved, and feel appreciated. So however I can maximize that is a big part of why I do things the way I do. Something that's a little bit more selfish is that I believe that you really come down to compensation, you come down to time. And one you can always get more of, one you can't. So now the older I'm getting, time is becoming the more important of those two assets. It's a big world out there, man.
Right.
It's a huge world. And a lot of times people don't get out to see it.
Yeah.
And for me to feel like I have an understanding of how things are going on, I need to get out there and see as much as I possibly can. You know, when I go on vacation, I'm not hanging out at resorts and, you know, those kind of things. I don't mind going to a third world country and then seeing how they live. You know,
right.
When I was in Mexico, one of the best experiences I had was this little taco truck on the side of the road, just a husband and wife, you know, and some of the best tacos I've ever had.
Yeah.
But I think for me, happiness is having a circle of people around you that you love, that you respect, that give that back to you as well. So however I can help develop and nourish that is what makes me happy.
I love that. And you mentioned like the small taco truck, and It's so true that those little experiences, the unplanned ones, are sometimes the best ones. And I think that more people who are listening and watching this should really take notes from you and how you see your life now and how you see life in general. Because I truly believe that life does come from the small things, and the small things add up to the big things. And
we can't do it ourselves.
Right.
Everything is a collaborative effort.
For sure. Absolutely.
As soon as you hear someone say me,
yeah, you're out the door.
You're missing the point.
Exactly. And so to sort of wrap up, I want to ask you, you're no longer the sick guy, right?
Right.
But for someone who, whether it's someone who is in their life who has cancer or someone who is currently going through some type of treatment or recovery, what would you say to them? What would you say that really stood out to you and really important to you? And what would you say to them?
So, like, as someone that has cancer in their life and like how to
Sure.
My perspective on this has changed a whole lot too. In the very beginning, I was definitely bitter, for sure. And one of the biggest pet peeves I had at the time was when someone says, "I know what you're going through." It's like, no, you don't. You have no idea. And I let go of that, and it kind of shifted a little bit where I said they can't know that, right? Like, this is one of those things that unless you've been through it, you can't. But I was wrong for saying that. A lot of people don't know what to say. And, all right, funny story. So I was really down in the dumps, and I joined, because this is all during, leading up to COVID.
Right.
And everything like that. So during my recovery, I joined a group, an online support group. And the proctor was like, all right, well, who wants to go first? And no one wanted to go first. So I go. And, by the end of it, I am a blubbering idiot, just sobbing. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I was the only one that was technically cancer-free. The girl that comes after me said, that she had stage 4 brain cancer. The girl that came after her had the 4th time that she was dealing with colon cancer. And I felt worse at the end of that conversation than I did going into it, because I realized I was doing the me thing. But for anyone that has that in their life, I think being present, sometimes being quiet, and just listening are the biggest gifts you can give. And I think that's not just for being sick, but in general.
That's a people thing.
The 2 ears, 1 mouth rule. So just the support, checking in, but also just understanding, because there was a while there, when I was on all the medication that I was on, I couldn't bring myself to answer texts. I couldn't pick up the phone. I was down in the dumps. I was depressed. And if you know someone that's kind of in that spot, just give them time. Don't stop reaching out. Be present and just be there you never know when you're going to get that call. And when you start coming out the other side of it, expect that person to start behaving more normally as you're used to. It's been a long journey. Like, I'm just now feeling like who I was before. Even awesome. In the year after treatment, I still wasn't quite myself, but I've gotten a little bit more of my bravado back, and I've gotten more confidence in myself. And I'm definitely more similar to who I was before I was sick than I was immediately after. So I think that's the journey a lot of people can relate to. That's awesome. And I think timing is everything, us meeting and for you coming on to talk about it, maybe a year or so ago, you may not have been as open because, you didn't want that to be like you didn't want to be like my identity. Your identity. Yeah. But now I think, as you said, you're coming back into who you are, truly who you are. You're able to talk about it and be open. And I think this is going to be able to help a lot of people. And honestly, I hope so. This is one of my favorite episodes, because I felt like it was just like I was able to get a lot out of this, I feel like. And, that's why I love doing this. That's why I'm happy and thankful you came on and you were able to make time. So it's a lot of fun, man. This is great. Yeah. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This has been an amazing one. Perspective, I think, is the biggest thing. I like it, yeah. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, who you guys enjoy. My name's Kevin Nichols. That's Ian to Fabio. Peace, guys. Peace.